Sergeant Daniel Danny McCoy had faced enemy fire, survived war zones, and carried his wounded brothers to safety. But nothing prepared him for the moment he saw his own daughter, 12-year-old Emily, being cast out like a servant by the people who were supposed to protect her. His blood ran cold, his fists clenched, and what he did next, no one saw it coming. Before we dive into this emotional and gripping story, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. The homecoming. The engine of the old pickup truck growled as Sergeant Daniel Danny McCoy turned onto the quiet suburban street. 2 years. That's how long it had been since he last saw home. 2 years of desert sand, sleepless nights, and the echoing crack of gunfire. 2 years of letters that never came, calls that never connected, and a grief so deep it threatened to swallow him whole. Lisa was gone. The thought still punched him in the gut every time it surfaced. His wife, his high school sweetheart, the mother of his child, had died while he was halfway across the world, unable to hold her hand, to say goodbye. The military had granted him emergency leave, but by the time he landed stateside, she was already buried. And Emily, his bright, fearless little girl, had been sent to live with her aunt, Margaret. Danny's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He hadn't seen his sister-in-law in years, but the memories weren't kind ones. She'd always looked down on him, the working-class Marine who'd married into her pristine country club family. But Lisa had made him promise. If anything ever happened to her, Margaret would take care of Emily. Now, as he pulled up to the sprawling colonial house with its manicured lawn and gleaming windows, Danny wondered if he'd made a mistake. The front door was unlocked. That was his first surprise. The second was the silence. No laughter. No TV. No sound of a 12-year-old girl's footsteps running to greet him. Just a faint, rhythmic squeak of something being scrubbed. Danny stepped inside, his boots too loud on the polished hardwood. And then he saw her. Emily. His daughter was on her knees in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hands raw and red as she dragged a sponge across the tile floor. Her hair, once a wild tumble of golden curls like her mother's, was pulled back in a tight, lifeless ponytail. She didn't look up, didn't even seem to notice him. His voice cracked. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, not with joy, but something closer to fear. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, recognition flickered across her face. "Dad!" Danny crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her, not caring that he was kneeling in soapy water. He reached for her, but Emily flinched, just slightly, just enough to make his stomach drop. "What are you doing?" he asked, softer now, nodding at the bucket beside her. Emily swallowed. Aunt Margaret said the grout needed cleaning before her book club gets here. Danny's jaw clenched. He glanced around. The house was spotless. Floors gleaming, counters wiped down, not a single dish and sink. And yet here was his daughter, scrubbing like a... His thoughts cut off as footsteps clicked down the hallway. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Margaret stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her designer blouse crisp and untouched. She hadn't aged a day, still perfectly highlighted hair, still that same cold smile. Danny rose slowly to his feet. Margaret. Daniel. Her gaze flicked to Emily, still kneeling on the floor. Don't stop working just because there's company. Emily immediately ducked her head and went back to scrubbing. Something inside Danny snapped. He reached down and gently pulled the sponge from Emily's hands. She's done. Margaret's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Excuse me? You heard me. Danny kept his voice low, controlled, the same tone he used when defusing a bomb. She's done cleaning. We're leaving. A beat of silence. Then Margaret laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Oh, that's rich. You disappear for 2 years, and now you think you can just waltz in and play daddy? She stepped closer, her perfume cloying. You abandoned her, Daniel, just like you abandoned Lisa. The words hit like a bullet. Emily made a small, wounded noise. Danny's vision went red at the edges. But before he could speak, Emily stood up, her small frame trembling. "Aunt Margaret," she whispered. "Please don't." "Quiet." Margaret didn't even look at her. Adults are talking. That was it. Danny reached for Emily's hand. It was ice cold. "Grab your things," he said quietly. "We're going." Margaret's smile turned venomous. "She doesn't have any things. Everything here belongs to me." Danny met her gaze. "Try me." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Margaret's eyes. And in that moment, Danny knew this wasn't just a homecoming. It was a war, the breaking point. The air in Margaret's immaculate kitchen was thick with tension, like the charged silence before a storm. Danny kept Emily's small hand firmly in his, feeling the way her fingers trembled. Whether from fear, exhaustion, or the shock of seeing him again, he couldn't tell. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't leaving without her. Margaret recovered quickly from a moment of hesitation, her polished facade sliding back into place. She smoothed her blouse and let out a laugh that sounded more like a warning. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic, Daniel. But let's be realistic. Where exactly do you think you're taking her? You don't even have a home." The words stung because they were true. After Lisa's death, Danny had been adrift, moving from base housing to temporary lodgings, his life packed into duffel bags. But he refused to let Margaret see how deep her jab had cut. "I'll figure it out," he said evenly. Emily's grip tightened on his hand. "Dad." Margaret's eyes flicked to her, and something cruel glinted in them. "Oh, Emily, don't tell me you actually believe this. He's been gone for years. What makes you think he'll stay now?" Danny felt Emily stiffen beside him. He crouched down to her level, ignoring the way his knees protested after too many years of hard landings and heavy gear. "Look at me, Em." Her eyes, Lisa's eyes, were wide and wet with unshed tears. "I'm not leaving you again," he said, voice low but unwavering. "Not ever." For a heartbeat, he thought she might believe him. Then Margaret scoffed. "Touching," she drawled. "But the law doesn't run on sentimentality. I have legal guardianship. Daniel, you can't just waltz in here and take her." Danny straightened, his patience fraying. "Legal guardianship doesn't mean treating her like a maid." Margaret's smile was razor-thin. "She's contributing to the household. It's called responsibility." "Responsibility?" Danny's voice dropped dangerously. "She's 12. And she's living under my roof, eating my food, wearing clothes I paid for." Margaret crossed her arms. "If you're so concerned, where were you when she needed school supplies? Or when she outgrew her shoes last winter?" The guilt hit like a sucker punch. He had sent money, every deployment bonus, every spare dollar, but the checks had been addressed to Lisa. After her death, he hadn't even thought. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "Aunt Margaret, please." I said quiet. Margaret's tone was icy. Something inside Danny snapped. He stepped forward, close enough that Margaret had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "You don't talk to her like that. Not ever again." For the first time, real fear flickered in Margaret's expression, but she recovered fast. "Or what? You'll hit me? Go ahead, Marine. Give me a reason to call the police." Danny's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He could feel Emily's terrified gaze burning into him, could hear the unspoken plea, "Don't make it worse." He exhaled slowly, forcing his fist to uncurl. "We're leaving. Now." Margaret smirked. "Without her things? We'll manage." Emily tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, my backpack." "It's upstairs." Danny hesitated. He didn't want to let her out of his sight, not even for a second. But the desperation in her eyes decided it. "Okay, go get it. Quick." Emily darted out of the kitchen before Margaret could protest. The moment she was gone, Margaret's smirk faded into something colder. "You're making a mistake, Daniel. You think you're saving her? You're dragging her into chaos. No job, no home, no plan. What kind of life is that for a child?" Danny didn't answer. He was listening for Emily's footsteps, counting the seconds until she returned. But then, a crash upstairs, a stifled cry. Danny was moving before his brain fully processed the sound. He took the stairs two at a time, heart hammering. Emily's door was ajar. He shoved it open. Emily was on the floor, Her backpack spilled open beside her, and standing over her was Margaret's 16-year-old son, Tyler, his expression caught between guilt and defiance. "What happened?" Danny's voice was deadly calm. Tyler shrugged. "She tripped." Emily scrambled to her feet, clutching a small, frayed notebook to her chest, the only thing she'd been trying to salvage from the mess. "It's okay, Dad. I'm okay." Danny looked from the notebook, filled with Lisa's handwriting, he realized, to the way Tyler loomed over her, and something dark and unyielding settled in his chest. He turned just as Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Get out," he said, so low it was almost a growl. Margaret opened her mouth, but for once, no words came out. Danny didn't wait for a response. He grabbed Emily's backpack, stuffed the notebook inside, and guided her toward the stairs. This time, no one stopped them. As they stepped out into the fading afternoon light, Emily's voice was small. "Where are we going?" Danny slung an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Somewhere better." Behind them, the door slammed shut, like the closing of a chapter. But the war was far from over. The war at home. The motel room was small. 2 beds, a flickering lamp, and the faint smell of old cigarettes buried beneath industrial cleaner. Danny set their bags down, listening to the hum of the air conditioner struggling against the summer heat. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. For now, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her notebook like a lifeline. She hadn't spoken since they left Margaret's house, and the silence gnawed at Danny. He crouched in front of her, gently prying the notebook from her grip. "Hey," he said softly. "Talk to me." Emily's throat worked. She gonna call the police. The certainty in her voice made his chest ache. "Let her try. You don't understand." Emily's fingers twisted in the hem of her shirt, a faded thing 2 sizes too big, probably one of Tyler's cast-offs. "Aunt Margaret knows people. Judges. Lawyers. They'll believe her." Danny exhaled slowly. He'd spent years strategizing in war zones, but this battlefield was different. Here, the enemy wore pearls and polite smiles. "Then we get proof," he said. Emily blinked. "What?" "Proof of how she treated you." Danny pulled out his phone, opening a blank note. "Start from the beginning. Everything." For a long moment, Emily just stared at him. Then, haltingly, the words began to spill out. The missed school days. The way Margaret made her cook dinner, but wouldn't let her eat until everyone else was finished. The time she locked Emily in the basement overnight for talking back. Danny's pen stilled. "She locked you in the basement?" Emily nodded, eyes fixed on the carpet. There were spiders. Something hot and furious clawed up Danny's throat. He forced it down. "What else?" The stories kept coming. Bruises explained away as clumsiness, confiscated letters Danny had sent. The way Margaret would smile sweetly at teachers while Emily stood beside her, silent and hollow-eyed. By the time Emily finished, Danny's hands were steady, but his pulse roared in his ears. This wasn't just neglect. It was calculated cruelty. "We need more than notes," he said. "We need witnesses." Emily chewed her lip. "Mrs. Wilkins saw stuff sometimes. She lives next door." Danny nodded. "Mrs. Wilkins, an ally. Anyone else?" "The school nurse. I went to her a lot when my stomach hurt." A code, Danny realized. For hunger. For fear. He stood abruptly, pacing the narrow strip of carpet between the beds. They needed a lawyer. They needed evidence. They needed... His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Danny answered warily. "McCoy. Sergeant McCoy." The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Captain Ruiz, JAG Corps. I hear you're in a bit of a situation." Danny's spine straightened instinctively. "Sir, I served with your CO in Fallujah. He called me..." A pause. "We take care of our own Marine. Let's talk." 20 minutes later, Danny had a plan. Ruiz knew a family law attorney, a bulldog who'd represented military parents in custody battles before. They'd file an emergency motion first thing tomorrow. But Ruiz's warning echoed in Danny's head. "Margaret's type fights dirty. Watch your back." Danny hung up and turned to Emily. "We're going to court." Her face paled. "What if we lose?" He knelt beside her. Then I'll take you and run so far they'll never find us. It wasn't a promise he should make, but the way Emily's shoulders relaxed told him it was the right one. That night, Danny lay awake listening to Emily's even breathing. Outside, a car door slammed. He was at the window in an instant, peering through the blinds. A sleek sedan idled in the parking lot. Behind the wheel, a man in a suit spoke into a phone, gaze fixed on their door. Danny's hand went to his hip, old instincts dying hard, but his sidearm was locked in a storage unit 3 states away. The sedan's headlights flared to life. For a tense moment, nothing moved. Then, with a quiet purr, the car pulled away. Danny exhaled. First skirmish to them. But the war was just beginning. The shocking decision. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, its marble steps worn smooth by decades of desperate footsteps. Danny adjusted his dress blues, the uniform he hadn't worn since Lisa's funeral, and squeezed Emily's hand. "You ready, soldier?" She nodded, jaw set in a way that reminded him painfully of her mother. Her clothes were new, a simple blue dress, and sneakers bought from a discount store yesterday. It was the first thing in years, she confessed, that hadn't been a hand-me-down from Tyler. Margaret arrived in a tailored cream suit, flanked by 2 lawyers. Her eyes skimmed over Danny's uniform with barely concealed disdain before landing on Emily. "Sweetheart," she cooed, reaching out. "You don't have to do this." Emily shrank behind Danny. The courtroom was all polished wood and echoing whispers. Family Court Judge Alvarez, a no-nonsense woman with silver streaking her dark hair, eyed them over her glasses as arguments began. Margaret's attorney went first. "Your Honor, Sergeant McCoy is a career military man with no stable home. My client has provided the child with—" "Your Honor," Danny's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Gutierrez, stood. "May we approach?" At the bench, she slid a manila folder to the judge. Emergency room records, school absentee logs, photographs. Judge Alvarez's expression darkened as she flipped through. Margaret's lawyer scoffed. "The girl is accident-prone. This proves nothing." Gutierrez didn't blink. Then perhaps the witnesses will. Mrs. Wilkins took the stand first, her knuckles white on the railing. "I saw that child hauling trash cans bigger than her in January. Saw Margaret lock her out in the rain." The school nurse was next. "Emily came to me weekly with headaches, stomach pains, classic stress symptoms." Margaret's smile never wavered, but her foot tapped an uneven rhythm against the floor. Then Gutierrez dropped the bomb. "Your Honor, we'd like to enter Exhibit D." The courtroom speakers crackled to life. "Aunt Margaret, please." "I'm so tired. I just want my dad." Emily's voice, small, broken, filled the room. Danny's head snapped up. He hadn't known about this. Margaret's lawyer shot to his feet. "This is—" "Quiet." Judge Alvarez's voice cut like steel. She rewound the voicemail, left 6 months ago, the timestamp showed, and played it again. Emily stared at her lap, shoulders hunched. Margaret finally broke. "That's taken out of context." She was being dramatic. "Enough." The judge removed her glasses. "Ms. Hartman, do you know what the penalty is for perjury?" The blood drained from Margaret's face. Judge Alvarez didn't wait for an answer. "Custody is hereby awarded to Sergeant McCoy. Permanently." A gasp rippled through the room, but the judge wasn't done. She fixed Margaret with a look that could have melted stone. "Given the evidence of forced labor, I'm ordering restitution for every hour this child worked in your home at Ohio's minimum wage." Margaret's mouth opened, closed. Danny expected fury. Instead, he saw something far more satisfying. Pure, uncalculated shock. Emily tugged his sleeve. "Dad, does this mean?" He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her hair. "It means you're free." As they walked out, Margaret hissed from behind them, "This isn't over." Danny didn't turn around. For the first time in years, he didn't have to. A new battlefield. The morning sun painted the Arizona desert in gold as Danny stood on the porch of their new home, a modest ranch-style house with a wraparound porch and just enough land for Emily to call her own. 6 months had passed since the courtroom victory, But the memory of Margaret's stunned silence still brought a quiet satisfaction. Emily burst through the screen door, her laughter ringing across the yard. "Dad, the chickens are out again." Danny chuckled, watching as she darted after a flurry of feathers, her golden curls bouncing in the sunlight. This was the Emily he remembered. The fearless, vibrant girl who'd been buried beneath years of neglect. The move had been Gutierrez's idea. "Fresh start," she'd said. "Somewhere Margaret's connections can't reach." The military had fast-tracked his transfer to a training base nearby, and the local school had welcomed Emily with open arms. Inside, the walls were slowly filling with photos. Emily's first day of 7th grade, Danny in his dress blues at her side. A framed picture Lisa on the mantel, her smile forever preserved in time. Emily plopped onto the porch steps beside him, slightly out of breath. "I think Buttercup hates me. She keeps running away." Danny ruffled her hair. "You'll win her over, just like you did with Mrs. Henderson next door." The elderly neighbor had initially eyed them with suspicion, until Emily started bringing her fresh eggs every Sunday. Now the woman baked them pies in return. Emily leaned against him, her voice softening. "Do you think Aunt Margaret will ever try to find us?" Danny's arm tightened around her shoulders. The restitution order had hit Margaret hard, not just financially, but socially. Gutierrez's last email mentioned rumors of a country club scandal. "If she does," he said, "we'll be ready." But for the first time, he realized the fear in Emily's eyes was gone, replaced by something stronger. Trust. A car horn honked out front. Emily jumped up. "That's Maya. We're working on our science project today." Danny watched as she grabbed her backpack, pausing only to press a quick kiss to his cheek. "Love you, Dad." The word still sent a jolt through him. "Love you too, soldier." As Emily climbed into her friend's car, Danny pulled out his phone. One unread message from Gutierrez. "Final restitution payment processed. Case permanently closed." He exhaled, the last knot of tension unraveling. They'd won, not just in court, but in the quiet moments. Homework at the kitchen table, movie nights on the couch, the way Emily now sang in the shower without fear being punished for making noise. This was their victory. Not just survival, but a life. That night, as Danny turned off the lights, he paused in Emily's doorway. Moonlight spilled across her face, peaceful in sleep. The frayed notebook, Lisa's letters, lay safely on her nightstand. Some battles left scars, but others, he realized, left something stronger in their wake. A family. If this story of resilience and love moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that no battle is too hard when fought for family. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of courage and second chances. Who should we feature next? Let us know in the comments.